For the news headlines, Pop Art, glimpse of its history in 1960s.
The truth of pop art movement.
Pop art era's unique types.
Andy Warhol, Campbell soup cans and other works.
Good morning, Philippines! Good morning, Manila! I am Luisito Pulgado.
And I'm Jerssey Tangonan.
Serving you the hottest and topmost news. This is News Art Patrol. It's 8 a.m. of November 11, 2022. For the brief history of pop art, here is Leah Garbo to give you the news.
Pop art is based on modern popular culture and the mass media, especially as a critical or ironic comment on the traditional fine art values. It is an art movement that emerged in 1950s and flourished in the 1960s in America and Britain. Drawing inspiration from sources in popular and commercial culture, various cultures and countries contributed to the movement during the 1960s and 1970s. Furthermore, it began as a revolt against the dominant approaches to art and culture and traditional views on what art should be. Young artists felt that what they were taught at art school and what they saw in museums did not have anything to do with their lives or the things they saw around them every day. Instead, they turned to sources such as Hollywood movies, advertising, product packaging, pop music, and comic books for their imagery. On the other hand, the independent group is widely regarded as the precursor to the pop art movement. Meanwhile, collages created from found objects, such as mass media items and the advertising of American culture, by the group's co-founder Eduardo Pagliozzi, made up art pieces he called bunk between 1947 and 1949. As a matter of fact, the word pop first appeared in one of his collages entitled "I Was a Rich Man's Plaything," made in 1947, where a smoking gun was accompanied by the word pop. Pop artists primarily used the vivid colors red, blue, and yellow in their works, the colors representing the references to popular culture as opposed to any inner feelings or emotions of what was being shown. And that's all for the brief history of pop art movement. Back to you, Luisito.
Thank you, Miss Leah.
Now, we have Mae Mapalad for the truth about characteristics of pop art movement.
It is really important to know some characteristics of pop art movement because it is one of the best ways to gain awareness and knowledge about it. Here are 5 characteristics that you can take note. Number 1 is everyday imagery. Pop art artists use everyday imagery with a focus on consumerism. Items found on grocery store shelves and household appliances were all part of pop art. Photos from newspapers, magazines, and illustration were utilized in pop art. Youthful pop culture found its way into imagery through rock stars, movie stars, and politicians. Number 2 is a merging of fine art and popular culture. Pop art dislodged the public's perception of what art was. While most pop art artists train in fine art, they blurred the borders between fine art and popular culture. British pop art artist Peter Blake illustrated this concept expertly with his pop art painting on the balcony, made to look like a collage. This pop art shows people surrounded by fine art and symbols of popular culture such as magazines. Number 3, bold colors. According to the research, pop art artists employed bold colors from the primary color palette, including vivid red, bright yellow, and royal blue. They also use unexpected tones not found in nature, along with neon and fluorescence. Pop artists created pop art that was meant to immediately grab the viewer's attention. Meanwhile, Roy Lichtenstein, 1923 to 1997, often painted women with the bright yellow hair and bold red lips, influenced by the comic book images they came from. In his pop art painting, maybe from 1965, the viewer takes in a bit more background than Lichtenstein generally shows. He uses color as punctuation against graphic black and white. The night sky is royal blue, the partially visible staircase is red, and the window pane is the same yellow as the woman's hair. Number 4 is humor. Pop art was created for the fun and frivolity of youth. Subjects were injected with humor. Even more serious, topics were made fun of. For instance, Wang by pop art artist Roy Lichtenstein takes the subject of war and simplifies it. The pilot on the left canvas is thinking, I press the fire control, and ahead of me, rocket blaze through the sky. The other aircraft explodes with the word Wang. Number 5 is appropriation. Many pop artists took images either from photography or print, and incorporated them directly into their works. Artists like Lichtenstein would take illustrations from comic books while only slightly re-imaging them. He would paint the images crop and remove background context, thereby omitting any storyline. That's all for the distinguished traits of pop art. Back to you, Jerssey.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
For the 5 things that people know regarding the types of pop art era, here is Joyce and Batingal to give you the updates.
Pop art is often appropriated imagery and technique from other art forms found in popular and political culture. There are 5 things that everyone knows regarding the types or style of pop art era. First is Neo-Dada. Neo-Dada is in pop art focused on the use of found or known objects in artwork. This style broke down barriers between art and the everyday. This style was employed by artists such as Jasper Johns, who made paintings depicting things the mind already knows, such as flags or numbers. Moreover, Neo-Dada artists often encourage viewers to look beyond traditional aesthetic standards and interpret meaning through a process of critical thinking generated by contradiction, absurd juxtaposition, coded narrative, and other mixed signal rather than the internal emotion the action painters reference in their abstract work. Second is collage. Pop artists like Richard Hamilton and Eduardo Polozzi made collage one of the most recognizable style of pop art. These artists used clippings from magazine and newspaper and incorporated them into artwork to create a narrative or commentary on modern life or culture. The meticulous medium of collage art has remained firmly in many artists' practices throughout art history. The term collage widely describes a method based on the cutting and pasting of paper, as well as these textiles, photographs, and other ephemera. Originally, collage was born from early paper making in Asia, eventually growing into a medium of great prestige. Third is pop culture. Pop culture art is characterized as artwork that takes a style of another medium. Example, comic book art, and imitate it on a different medium. Typically, artists take elements from pop culture and put together to form a statement on modern society. Sometimes, these elements don't even seem apparent to why they are together, leaving the viewer questioning what does it really mean. This is a reflection of life and reality, and are the basis for the questions that may not have any meaningful answer. Fourth is repetitions. Modern and contemporary artists use repetition not simply to improve on an initial version, but as the basis of their art, creating rhythm and regularity within their work. The years following World War II saw the triumph of the mass production of consumer goods, the long assembly lines of identical cars or washing machines, the food shop's window full of lookalike cornflake packets inspiring pop artists like Andy Warhol to borrow the materials, techniques, and imagery of mass production for their art. For instance, Andy Warhol used repetition as central to his work. He could create grids of identical images which were presented much in a similar format to a book of stamps, the only variety lying in his choice of color. But if Warhol was using repetition to comment on mass production in a consumerist world, he preferred not to say, instead simply claiming that I like things to be exactly the same over and over again. Last is pop sculpture. Sculptors within the pop art movement explored many of the same themes as painters, but in a different form. Clay's Oldenburg took everyday objects and turned them into oversized sculptures. Oldenburg satirized simple, everyday things like ice cream or a clothespin.
Thank you, Miss Joyce.
We will have a short commercial break for the meantime. We will be right back for a few minutes.
Make friends with Kita Kita Biscuit.
We're back. You're still watching News Art Patrol. For the Andy Warhol Campbell Soup Cans and Other Work, here is Giancarlo Dasco to give you the news.
Live here in the Museum of Modern Arts, Midtown Manhattan, New York City. Andy Warhol's Campbell Soup Can is the signature work in the artist's career and the landmark in the museum's collection. The 1962 series of 32 paintings is the centerpiece in this focus collection. Exhibition of Warhol's work during the crucial years between 1953 and 1967. The soup cans mark a breakthrough for Warhol when he began to apply his seminal strategies of serial repetition and reproduction to key subjects derived from American commodity culture. Warhol also developed his signature uses of flat uniform aesthetic of photo screen printing just after he completed the soup cans. For the first time at MoMA, the 32 soup cans shown in a line rather than a grid, echoing the way they were first exhibited at the Ferus Gallery, Los Angeles in 1962. The exhibition also includes drawings and illustrated books Warhol made in the 1950s, when he started his career as a commercial artist, and other paintings and prints from the 1960s when he became a beacon of the pop art movement. Meanwhile, Warhol also a pioneer and prolific filmmaker. His famous screen test made between 1964 and 1966 consists of 472 individuals film portraits of visitors to his legendary studio known as the Factory. A testament to his perennial interest in portraiture, the screen test also advanced a new performance starring non-professionals whose only task was to remain silent and still for the duration of call. Other works challenged the limits of audience attention, such as Empire, an 8-hour stationary shot of the Empire State Building. Drawing from a range of genres, Warhol also made scripted featured-length films that delved into New York's underground subcultures and turned the Factory's collection of artists and misfits into superstars. 2 years after his death, 1987, MoMA mounted its first retrospectives of his work Since then, Warhol's stature has only grown as the influence of his work in its merging of pop culture and fine arts. Its exploitation of the serial logic of the play and his own canny media manipulation and self-passioning continues to reverberate. That's all for the updates. Back to you, Jerssey.
Thank you, John Carl.
That's all for the news updates. Again, this is Luisito Pulgado.
And this is Jersey serving you the hottest and topmost news. This is News Art Patrol. Thank you.